Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you had a restful weekend, and I wish you all a productive week ahead. Before we move into the main stories, we note that a Chinese rocket crashed after being accidentally launched during a ground test on Sunday. Space Pioneer, the English name of a private company, explained in a statement that the crash happened when the first stage of the rocket detached from its launch pad during a test. Quote, due to the structural failure of the connection between the rocket body and the test platform. After liftoff, the onboard computer was automatically shut down and the rocket fell into the deep mountains, 1.5 kilometers, 0.9 miles, southwest of the test platform. The rocket body fell into the mountain and disintegrated. End quote. The crash was indeed in the hills of central Henan province, but still only a few miles from urban space. The company says there was no injuries. Space Pioneer is a big player in China's rapidly growing commercial rocket sphere, having successfully launched a rocket into orbit in 2023. Its Tianlong-3 reusable rocket is projected to be able to deliver 17 tons of payload to low Earth orbit and is similar in design and performance to SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. The accident comes just days after China's Chang'e 6 returned to Earth with the first ever samples from the far side of the moon. Okay, now let's move into today's main stories, which will be focused on economic updates. Yesterday, Sunday, the National Bureau of Statistics published the official Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index. According to the data, China's manufacturing sector stayed in contraction for a second consecutive month in June, underscoring the difficulties that still, after years, plague the economy. The Manufacturing Purchasing Manager Index came in at 49.5 in June. A reading above the 50 mark suggests activity expansion, while below that level indicates a contraction. Manufacturing accounted for 27% of China's GDP in the first quarter. China's non-manufacturing PMI, which covers both service and construction activity, declined to 50.5 in June from 51.1 in May. The sub-index tracking service activity fell to 50.2 in June, compared with 50.5 in May, while the construction sub-index fell to 52.3 from 54.4. Muddying the picture somewhat, however, today, Monday, saw the publication of the Caixin China General Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, which tries to give an independent snapshot of the sector. According to this unofficial index, activity in China's manufacturing sector in June grew at the fastest pace since May 2021, with the index coming in at 51.8 in June. China's economy has performed unevenly this year, to put it mildly, with manufacturing at times a bright spot, while consumption has been weighed down by a prolonged real estate crisis. China's real estate sector hasn't shown signs of reversing its downturn after Chinese leaders introduced fresh support measures in recent months. Trade tensions haven't helped either, with two of China's biggest export markets, the US and the European Union, both rolling out protectionist measures, and many in the rest of the world, from India to Brazil, are doing the same. Zhou Hao, chief economist at Guotai Junan International, speaking on the new official numbers, expressed, quote, policymakers will likely focus on fiscal measures to support the economy, given the constraints on monetary easing due to currency pressures, end quote. As we have discussed in a previous video, the upcoming third plenum this month is expected to endorse a wide-ranging communiqué covering a deepening of reforms, along with other substantial measures to send a strong signal to the markets and restore investor confidence. We will have to see whether this is successful. However, the next development we're going to cover, while likely popular with working and middle-class audiences, will likely not help with business confidence. Last week, US outlet Bloomberg reported that large SOEs, state-owned enterprise financial firms, have asked staff making over 2.9 million RMB, $400,000 to give up deferred compensation and in some cases return non-compliant pay earned in previous years. As veteran China analyst Bill Bishop observed over the weekend, quote, this fits with the ongoing crackdown on financial sector compensation, but does not help boost confidence or the revival of animal spirits in the markets, End quote. The Bloomberg article writes that, quote, the era of big paychecks for Chinese financiers is fast coming to an end as some of the industry's biggest companies impose strict new limits to comply with President Xi Jinping's Common Prosperity Campaign. End quote. The outlet, citing unnamed sources, explains that China Merchants Group, China Everbright Group, and CITIC Group Corp are among state entities that have conveyed the guidance to employees at some of their units in recent weeks. Some mutual fund managers are also being pressured to return non-compliant pay earned in previous years. Several Chinese mutual fund managers proposed capping staff salaries at about 3 million yuan. Quote, vilified by Beijing as hedonists over their lavish lifestyles, top-earning finance workers, including investment bankers and fund managers, have been among the hardest hit by Xi's push for a more equal distribution of wealth. The $66 trillion financial industry has fallen under tighter Communist Party control, with banks and brokerages slashing pay and other perks. The move comes as China recently started a new round of anti-graft inspections of some of its largest state lenders, the central bank, and key regulators. The first broad probe since the one in 2021 that sent shockwaves through the industry. End quote. At least 130 financial officials and executives were investigated or punished in 2023 alone. Now we have two more economic updates to cover, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, I have a big favor to ask, just to hit the like button, and if you have not done so already, subscribe. About 42% of regular viewers are not subscribed, and if we can get that below 40, that would be great. This is very useful for the algorithm and helps the channel be shown to new people. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description for those who want to help get the channel financially sustainable. Thank you so much. Next up, over the weekend, the State Council unveiled a list of rare earth regulations aimed at protecting suppliers in the name of national security. It also laid out rules on the mining, smelting, and trade in the critical materials used to make products from magnets and electric vehicles to consumer electronics. The regulation spells out that the resources belong to the state and that, quote, no organization or individual may encroach upon or damage, end quote, them. They also say that the state will oversee the development of the industry. Rare earths is a group of 17 minerals, which, despite the name, are not especially rare, just dirty and expensive to mine and process, of which China has in recent years become the world's dominant producer, accounting for nearly 90% of global refined output. They are of increasing strategic value in global competition too. UK-based Reuters writes today that under a law that entered into force in May, the EU set ambitious 2030 targets for domestic production of minerals crucial in the green transition, particularly rare earths, due to their use in permanent magnets that power motors in EVs and wind energy. EU demand is forecast to soar sixfold in the decade to 2030 and sevenfold by 2050. We remember last year Beijing banned the export of technology to make rare earth magnets, as well as other restrictions, triggering fears in several capitals of over-reliance on Beijing in the space. Next up, and finally for today, a shocking and newly released State Council audit report showed that officials from over 100 counties across China misappropriated at least 2.2 billion yuan, $302 million in meal subsidies meant for rural students between 2021 and 2023. These students are mostly from poverty-stricken parts of the country and are thus very vulnerable. This report shows both the level of corruption that still exists in the country, as well as just how bad the local fiscal crisis is, because, according to the audit, in 66 counties, the misappropriated funds were used to settle government debts. Local government debt amounted to 40 trillion yuan officially by the end of last year. The report tracked a total of 23.1 billion yuan in subsidy funds relating to 159 counties across 13 provinces, suggesting that two-thirds of counties misappropriated the funds, a staggering number. Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post, writing on the audit, reports that China introduced the meal plans in 2011 to improve nutrition standards for rural students, many of whom are so-called left-behind children of migrant workers in urban areas. Quote, research shows that providing school meals in impoverished areas can play a key role in reducing malnutrition among children, as well as improving cognitive abilities, academic performance, and student enrollment rates. End quote.
Starting in 2011, the central government budgeted 16 billion yuan annually towards a 3 yuan daily subsidy per rural student. This was raised to 5 yuan in 2021, just 69 US cents. The scheme currently covers nearly 1,570 counties across 28 provinces and regions for hundreds of millions of students, the South China Morning Post reports. But this audit suggests that hundreds of millions of some of the most vulnerable children in the country are having this already quite modest support taken by local officials, primarily to pay off public debt. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Monday, have a productive week, and I will see you all tomorrow.